Happy Friday, and welcome to this week's edition of Shaynel's 3 Cents. I am your host, the founder and executive director of our blended family, Shaynel Caldwell. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. Those of you that are tuning in via Facebook Live on my personal page, hey, how you guys doing? Those of you that are also watching us on the YouTube, one of my favorite channels, Voxwave, woo, woo, make sure that you all check in. Please tell a friend. Hopefully you all will join us. We have a great show today. Lots of content that we'll be going into. So I'm going to give a brief little intro about something that's been on everyone's mind during this awesome month of Black History is what in the world is going on with Jussie? What happened here? So for those of you that have not been paying attention, Empire actor Jussie Smollett, which of course we loved him when we loved his sister from a long time ago. But apparently there was an incident last month where he alleged that he was attacked by two white MAGA supporters. And apparently they poured bleach on him. They put a noose around his neck. They beat him up, and all in the name of, we can't stand you, N-word, go back to where you came from, and we also hate you. You watch Empire as well, blah, blah, blah. So anywho, Jussie ends up in the hospital, and this was after, of course, the incident when he went to the Subway at 2 o'clock in the morning. I didn't know they were open that late, but shout out to Subway. But anywho, there was some doubt that came about through the Chicago police and the ensuing investigation. And so we had some folks on the left that were kind of concerned that, did this really happen? And then we had folks on the right via a lot of social media personalities, a lot of people in the news that were offering condolences and words of support with regard to Jussie, because no one should be accosted on account of their race. No one should ever be isolated and pinpointed to a point to where they're being assaulted because of what they believe in. And so it sparked a huge national incident behind that. Lo and behold, a couple weeks ago, we started getting information again from the Chicago police, where people were also saying, well, we don't really trust the Chicago PD because they also have a history of doing a lot of, I don't want to say condescending, but a lot of illegal stuff towards Black people. So we were concerned about that as well. But as the story unfolds, Jussie apparently turned himself into the police on Wednesday, Thursday, yesterday, with regard to being alleged that he made this whole thing up. So those of us that were in support of Jussie, we're so sorry this happened to you. You know, we certainly have to do what we can to affect these race issues in America, and we have to make sure that we're being supportive with regard to individuals that have been assaulted or accused based upon their race and or sexuality. To now, really? This what you got, homie? And apparently it was all based around his desire to get a raise for his job at Empire as an actor. So I'm not really mad at Jussie. I'm disappointed that this happened, and he will have the side eye for me for a little while. But I'm also going to make a note that if our illustrious president, Mr. Donald Trump, if he can cause and create a national emergency, then I think Jussie can fake an assault just so that he can get a raise. How about that? So anywho, we're going to come right back with our guest for today. We have an awesome young lady that's going to be calling in to talk about all things weed, marijuana, ganja, whatever you want to call it. And we'll talk a little bit about whether the differences between the CBD, the THC, and hemp. And we're also going to talk about the root of all things, the root of all evil things, money, and how you can make some money off of this whole marijuana industry. So again, we'll be right back with my co-host, Mr. Valario Johnson, as I affectionately refer to VJ. We'll see you back right after this break.
Personally helped several people reclaim their healthy lives with a ketogenic lifestyle. Together with our team, Wakaya Perfection, we've helped over 4,000 people struggling with weight loss to burn off unwanted fat naturally and control hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and high cholesterol with our Bula Fit Keto Fuel Shake and high-impact ginger and turmeric. Contact me for yours. Buttons, BoutThatKetoLife.com. That's BUTTONS BOUTTHATKETO WeightLossLife.com or call at 202-875-3926.
Weight loss expectations are approximately 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results can and will vary.
Welcome back. Again, we want to thank you so much for tuning in to this week's edition of Shaynel's 3 Cents. And my awesome co-host today, who is back, Mr. VJ Valario Johnson, is joining us.
Where did I go? You're back. Back this week. I'm here every week, right?
I can't get rid of him. Okay, so again, for our discussion today, we're going to be talking about weed, marijuana, ganja, and all that good stuff. And I think it was important for me because I learned something, and I love to learn things, big old nerd. But for those of us that watched the Kamala Harris interview with the Breakfast Club.
And I'm an alpha, and she's an AKA.
Look, well, let me tell you why I'm giving her the side eye. Now, mind you, I'm a fan. I have not decided who I'm voting for the Democratic primary, but I am a fan. But I was concerned because not only during the interview, she made an effort to be relatable to the audience by mentioning,
concentrated out. Yeah, she was.
And, I listen to Snoop and Tupac and yada, yada, yada.
She graduated in 86.
Well, there was that. Apparently, there's some allegations where people said that she brought up those speakers during a time frame when those rappers were not even rapping.
Tupac's my guy.
On the mainstream. But I think the most disconcerting thing for me was the feedback that was provided by her father, Professor Harris at Berkeley. Go Cal Berkeley.
Professor Harris.
Professor Harris, yes. And he was highly disappointed because the comment that she made that appeared to offend him was that, well, I'm from Jamaica, we all smoke, or something along those lines. And of course,
ethnical stereotypes.
Yes, that goes back to the stereotypes that only those black people that smoke weed, they have dreads, they look like this, they have sagging pants. And so that kind of furthered the stereotype about primarily not only black people, but also people of Jamaican descent. So, because marijuana is not legal in Jamaica.
It just grows freely.
Yes, but it is not legal. And did you know that the term ganja is actually not from Jamaica, it's from India? It is from India. And Kamala's mother, I believe, is of Native Indian descent. And when we say India, we mean the country of India,
yeah.
Not Native Americans Indian. So ganja is actually an East Indian word. Yes.
India, is Indonesia, is that different?
Okay, that's China.
Okay.
But yeah, good
But that's
question.
all
like
Asian,
all
right? That's
all part of Asia. Yes.
They're Asian.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, so that's where they got ganja from. So again, it didn't come from the Jamaicans. It came from the Indians, part of that slave trade and the trading routes where they were also trading silk and furs and all those good things. So that's where that term came from. So again, it was kind of one of those things people use. Oh, well, I smoked, I'm cool. Going back to Bill Clinton, I smoked, but I didn't inhale. So we still kind of see the stereotypes that marijuana is a bad thing, hence the reason it is illegal in the United States of America. So.
You smoke weed?
Huh?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm a federal contractor, so yeah, that's all we're going to say about that. But the things that are kind of important, we do know that marijuana is legal in a variety of states. And as a matter of fact, we have a nice little chart to show everyone that recreational marijuana is legal in 10 states, including the great place where VJ lives. Where do you live at, VJ?
3 stars and 2 bars. The District of Columbia.
In D.C., marijuana, recreational marijuana is legal in D.C., which is one of the awesome 10 states that is also legal. There are 33 states where medicinal marijuana is legal. And so that's also something that we think that, people need to be mindful of, because there are 2 different types of weed that they sell for recreation and areas that they sell for medical. So we're putting up a chart for those of you on Facebook. My apologies. We'll make sure that we put this up on the website. But this is a map that shows all the states where marijuana is legal.
Alaska?
Oh, yeah, they get it. They get it in Alaska.
Why they growing weed
And so
in
we're
Alaska?
looking at on the western shoreboard, you have Alaska, Washington, Oregon, California, and Nevada. Of course, all legal for recreational. Also the state of Colorado. And then you have, as we move a little further towards the East Coast, you have Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota that are medicinal, and a few other states down south. All the states surrounding Texas are medical use, but not Texas. And then, of course, we come over near us. Maryland is legal for medical. So is Delaware, New Jersey, all that good stuff. So kind of interesting to see that there is a movement. And for those of you that have been paying attention to what's been going on in the political arena, a lot of the candidates that won the primaries recently won off of marijuana-based platforms, the legalization of marijuana.
And the decriminalization.
And the decriminalization, yes.
Let's
yes.
say that for Khadijah.
Oh, no. And on that note, look, and on that note, we're actually going to have our guest is going to be calling in today. Khadijah, are you there, my dear?
I am here.
Awesome.
How you guys?
Awesome. Can you tell our guests a little about who you are and why you're here to talk about our marijuana discussion today?
Sure.
We love you.
Hi, VJ.
Hey.
Thank you for introducing me to Shaynel, and thanks, Shaynel, for having me on the show to talk about why marijuana matters. So, yeah, a little bit about me. I'm an Alabama native. I've spent the last 19 years in D.C. working on all kinds of issues, and most of them lead to one central thing, and that is that most of the problems that we're trying to alleviate, whether it's around education disparities, health disparities, income disparities, it leads to a central point of being in a consistent state of poverty. And so 2 years ago, when I got accepted to the Kennedy School, I had an opportunity to think broadly about how I would want to address poverty and differently than I had in the last 20 years of my career. Mm-hmm. And so I decided that I wanted to spend my time talking about and learning about cannabis policy and how it impacted African American communities, specifically minority communities more broadly. And so that's how I came to understand and be able to articulate that marijuana matters for our communities in particular on a number of different fronts, from the criminal justice front, from the consumption aspect, public health, you name it. And what I hope we get a chance to talk about from the economic impact front as well.
Absolutely. Something that we posted on our social media was the hashtag marijuana matters. And we know that kind of follows the Black Lives Matter movement, because everything that comes around the new social wave is this matters and this matters. Can you tell our listeners why marijuana matters is important and where that was made?
Sure. So, I will say this, that marijuana has some negative connotation for our Latin brothers and sisters. When the word marijuana has been used to discriminate against Latino brothers and sisters, and I acknowledge that. But when I went to the Kennedy School, I did a number of focus groups, specifically in communities of color, predominantly African-American communities of color. And the reason I chose to use marijuana specifically is because there's a culture that is built around the ecosystem of marijuana. And I did not want to lose that in terms of how I talk about cannabis policy. And so the short answer to your question about why it matters is because, you know, the last 40, 50 years, African Americans and Latino folk have been systematically used as the criminalized front of marijuana. But here we are in a place where 33 states and the District of Columbia have some form of legalized marijuana, yet black and brown folk are the least likely to be owners or makers or producers in that industry. And there's a reason why. Because in most of the laws and policies that have been passed in the last 10 years to decriminalize, and I use air quotes there, and to legalize marijuana, whether it's adult use or medicinal, they have these provisions or these further prohibitions that folks who have a marijuana-related conviction are not allowed to work in shops, invest in the industry, and or participate as owners. And I just think it's so ironic. Here we are on the precipice of this billion-dollar industry, and black and brown folks who have been losing billions of dollars in terms of human capital from their families and their communities should not participate. I just feel like every time someone gets to talk about legalization, you get to talk about how it has devastated individuals and communities. So that, for me, is why it matters.
So for, just in case our listeners are having a hard time hearing, to recap what you said.
Oh, sorry, I am traveling. I apologize.
No. We're going to work it out here in the studio. I just want to make sure that that we all understand the points that you're making, that the individuals within our black and brown communities, our African Americans and Latino Americans, they have been disproportionately criminalized because of marijuana use. So we've seen that they have higher sentences. They're more often stopped by the police for, we think that you may be in possession of marijuana, or your car smells like, when you drove past, we smelled it out your window. But seeing these high incidents of crime and getting these things on their records, whether or not it's a misdemeanor or a felony, those things, we see that a lot in our communities. However, now that the states have made marijuana legal in the states that are looking to do so, those same people that have been involved, whether or not they were users or they were producers, they are not able to start profiting from it as a business, correct?
Legally, right?
Yes, now that it's legal.
Professionally.
They're not able to participate in the regulated market. And, you know, just some quick stats, even as Colorado has legalized marijuana, what has happened, or what is starting to happen, is there was initially this drop in African Americans being arrested for marijuana possession. Mm-hmm. But now you see an increase because individuals are not able, that's my granddaughter, are not able to participate in the legal regulated market because the barriers to entry are so high. Like, to start a marijuana business, we're talking about, you know, at least $1 million in liquid assets that you need to have, depending on what part of the industry you're trying to get into. Mm. And so, for me, when I think about the criminalization of it, so it's one thing to be arrested for having marijuana years ago, and then for that to be on your record and not be able to potentially get government assistance to go to school or to lose public housing assistance. Those are the ways that one arrest, not even necessarily a conviction or doing time, actually still creates systematic poverty. One arrest could potentially harm a family for generations. Mm-hmm. And then we have it being legal, it just compounds the issue.
Okay. Well, let's back up a little bit. While we mentioned some of the states that are currently allowing marijuana to be legalized, there was an article back in January, and of course it was, all over the news that the governor of the state of Washington, he was actually pardoning, they said, thousands of folks that have been convicted. And I believe the exact number is almost 3,500, 3,500, but they all had to be first-time offenders, and they all had to be between, I believe, 1987 and 2012 that he was actually going to do a pardon for. So while we certainly want to give kudos to him for that, you still have to look at, well, what about the people that got picked up the first time and then they went back and did it the second time? Because I know a lot of the folks that are arrested, and I believe some of the stats that came from, I want to say it was 2016 Department of Justice report, that the majority of individuals that got picked up for marijuana uses were actually dealers and people that were actually selling the product. And so it seems that, that's kind of a catch-22, because if you know how to sell it, you know how to get it, you know how to weigh it, you know how to package it, you're already in a business. So let's kind of move you out of the illegal business and put you in the legal business, because clearly you picked up some type of business acumen along the way to be able to do this and have been doing it for a while. So it's really unfortunate that a lot of states have made it so that even though you've been convicted of such, you cannot, turn yourself on the path to being a successful producing citizen because you've had this conviction.
Hey, Khadijah, I have a question. In your studies at HKS, is there any patterns or parallels with prohibition and what's happening right now? In my mind, I can wrap this concept around, in my head, using prohibition as an example, right?
You mean how Joe Kennedy took all the money?
Yeah, we got a president off of the industry, right? But like, is there a correlation? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of correlations, but none that I would want to put forth in terms of how we look at this particular piece. But sure, we can look at prohibition of alcohol and see. And let's be clear, a lot of folks are vying for 2020 and will use cannabis as a way to get there, whether it's talking Cory Booker or Kamala Harris, or which one of the candidates is talking about reparations? No one's giving her much pub, but I'm all about that life, the reparations life. But to answer your question, DJ, yes, there are some similarities, but I think where it differentiates is when you have marijuana, the criminalization of marijuana is proven, or there's evidence that strongly suggests that it's both racially and politically motivated. And so here we are 40 years later, and we're looking at how a U.S. sanctioned policy against minority folks is playing out with generational poverty. When we look at the stats, I think it was a Boston Globe article a few months ago that laid out where the wealth gap between African Americans and non-African Americans, meaning Caucasian white folks, it was, this crazy number that black wealth was like $1.50 and compared to $150,000 for families, for white families. And I'm thinking, and there's projected to be negative black wealth if this trend continues. And so where it differs is that we can't necessarily point to a time in prohibition of alcohol that a whole group of folks were systematically and politically disenfranchised. Mm-hmm. We can point to that when we talk about marijuana-related offenses and nonviolent drug offenses and the war on drugs and mass incarceration. All of it is hand in hand.
Right. I like how you both mentioned the political realm and how there are certain people that are trying to support it so that they can not only increase their platform, but hopefully because they care and they're meaning to help invest in our communities. But I recall a certain jerk by the name of John Boehner, who was the Speaker of the House during our Obama years. And he was real trifling, and he was a supporter and a pusher of a lot of policies that did not favor people of color. But Mr. Boehner is actually on the board of directors at Acreage Holdings, which is one of the largest marijuana distributing companies that also has roots in Colorado and Oregon, and he sits on the board. So at that time where he's pointing fingers at people and saying, this is bad, we're going to lock them up, he's making money and he's all in the news now. You can look him up and Google him. That he sits on the board of directors for Acreage Holdings, which is one of the fastest growing marijuana companies today.
Jeez. We're in the wrong business. Khadijah, how are we going to get some money out here?
We're in the wrong business.
So before I get off the line, I just want to say one thing, that when I talk about Marijuana Matters and the social equity argument, entrepreneurship is but one lane or one perspective to think about this. Because let's face it, not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur, no matter which the industry is. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, for those who are trying to enter into a heavily regulated industry like marijuana, it's not necessarily going to be the easy win, even with tons of support. But that doesn't mean that social equity the conversation needs to stop there. I think we have a real opportunity to think strategically about what it means to use those tax revenue dollars to support communities and individuals who have, again, disproportionately been impacted by the criminalization of marijuana. We've done that. We've seen that happen, whether it's a bag tax or casino tax or anything else. And so I would strongly encourage you and your listeners to begin to pay attention to the arguments around legalization of marijuana. Times you hear cities say we were looking for the tax windfall, and quite honestly, states like Colorado and California and Mass and even the District of Columbia stand to rake in a lot of dollars. But where does that money go? I think we should be having an honest conversation about, if you're going to collect money on the legalization of marijuana, then some of those dollars should be sequestered in support of communities and individuals who have been harmed by marijuana laws. But how do we make this money? Well, there's a big ecosystem out there, quite honestly, DJ, and I am working with a number of different local folks. Shout out to Tori, shout out to Jay Mills, Conscious Cook, about how we actually do that for the local community in D.C. And, if I were giving any kind of investment advice, people should call me, DM me. I'll let you know where I think you should put your money.
Okay, let me repeat that for our viewers, that you can actually reach out to her for investment advice surrounding this. I want to make sure people know that. Really quickly,
She know money. I can vouch for that.
Are you looking at the differences between hemp and marijuana with regards to where the money is or how to get things started? Because I do want to talk a little bit about the differences between the two.
Yeah, you guys mentioned Boehner, and I'll just say this. Pay attention to Mitch McConnell. One of the biggest things that he's done this year outside of make sure he delivers on the Supreme Court justice was to make sure that the hemp amendment was a part of the Farm Bill in 2018. Which
the Farm Bill.
Yeah, which essentially legalized hemp all over this country. Shout out to all the hemp farmers out there. Why this is important is because the medicinal market hemp will help drive the medicinal market. So in those places where medicinal marijuana is already legal, it's already regulated, the CBD market is going to explode. People should be paying attention. I want to give a heads up to black farmers in Texas, black farmers in the South. If you are struggling with your current crop, please do not be afraid of marijuana and hemp. Let's get together. Let's have some conversation about how you make this a generational wealth-building opportunity for your family. And so there's a chart on my Instagram page, and I didn't create it, but I give credit to who did create it.
Mm-hmm. What's your Instagram page? Don't forget to tell us.
MPT Lifestyle. And if you're on Twitter, you can follow me at Tribble Me, TRIBBLEME. But basically, when you think about the plant, the marijuana, the cannabis plant, there are two main ways in which folks are moving and operating. There's the CBD lane, and then there's the THC lane. Folks commonly like to refer to them as one more euphoric, that would be THC, one less euphoric and more medicinal, I put that in air quotes, as CBD. And so individuals who are trying to think about the difference between adult use, recreational, and medicinal markets, that's where you find CBD in the medicinal, THC in the adult use. I myself, personally, until there's more research available to us, I'm going to stay clear of any definitive. I think that there are some medicinal properties that are to be discovered in THC, and we just need to find out what they are, which is why one of the things that Marijuana Matters promotes as a part of our social equity platform is the need to do health impact assessments with any legalization effort, particularly for our folks. We need to make sure that we are part of those conversations. I invite HBCUs to become more involved. Shout out to FAMU. I know you guys are already headed down that way. Howard University, where are you? Morgan State, where are you? North Carolina A&T. I think you guys need to be a part of this conversation when we're talking about research and development.
Are those your land grant institutions? Is that why you're calling them out?
Absolutely.
Oh, throw out Savannah State. I can call alumni now.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead and do that. And VJ, real talk, pay attention to what Louisiana State did. So it's Louisiana State, the state of Louisiana, only has medicinal marijuana, but it entered into an exclusive contract with one of the largest makers in the medicinal space. And as a part of their contract, they gave LSU exclusive rights to growing the medicinal marijuana piece.
Wow.
And
Okay,
so,
hold tight, Khadijah, for a second. We're going to get our engineer to put up another graphic. This is a graphic that shows some of the primary differences between THC and CBD, marijuana, and the hemp side.
Great.
For those that, to kind of break it down simply, the chart shows the different plants, the sizes, and on the hemp side, they explain it, of course, as the sativa that tells you the psychoactive content, which one has more, which one has less. Marijuana has much more than the other, and marijuana is typically, as they quote in the chart, used for getting high, cerebral purposes, and hemp is used mostly for auto parts, soap, concrete, and some other uses. And their estimated domestic market value for hemp is $452 million, which is one of the reasons, as you mentioned before, that Mitch McConnell put it forward for Donald Trump to sign that farm bill so that they could start making money off of, as you said earlier, the hemp side, because we do know that the THC side will not be far behind, because their estimated market value, according to our chart here, is anywhere from $10 to $120 billion.
Yeah, the hemp market is crazy because hemp, is like a fiber, and a lot of things, durable things, are made with hemp. And one of the ways in which I come to know about hemp is through defense contracting. People should just do some research and see how much money is spent in the defense contracts related to hemp. You'd be surprised.
Okay, yeah, that's good information for us to know. Real quickly, before we leave, can you give us some parting words? We want to make sure that people can connect with you on social media. I believe I had you tagged on our Facebook pages, also our Twitter and our Instagram pages, but can you repeat them one more time for those that are actively listening?
Sure. So you can follow me on Twitter at Tribble Me, TRIBBLEME, and on Instagram at MPT Lifestyle. That's Marijuana Policy Trust Lifestyle. And this is if folks take nothing else from our conversation, I want folks to black folk in particular, but folks in general. There's a certain way we've been programmed to think about cannabis and marijuana, and it's all fake news. And so let's try to reprogram how we think and engage with marijuana. And this is not me saying that people should roll up a joint and get high. I'm not advocating for that. I'm advocating for us to think differently about what this opportunity presents, whether you're on the consumer side, on the maker production side, or on the investment and or research side. Let's not sit out this conversation. I
Absolutely.
think there's some real opportunities for us. Thanks for having me, guys. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you, Khadijah. Again, that was Khadijah Tribble. We have all of her information on our social media accounts. Make sure you follow up with her. We're actually going to chat a little bit more and give you some additional reasons to reach out to her.
All right, guys.
All right,
we
thanks
got
again.
a special gift for you.
Oh, thank you.
And you don't need a lighter to use it.
You need ice cubes though. You need ice cubes.
Oh, okay. All right. See you later, guys.
Bye.
All right, thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Yeah, so I thought that I think it was really helpful for people to understand that.
That's a lot. It was deep.
To try to concentrate it all. The whole situation and the whole discussion about marijuana is not just for people to consider, the people are smoking marijuana. No, there are a lot of uses, good uses that actually come out of marijuana. And as we mentioned before, the two sides of it, the THC side versus the CBD. Forbes.com had an article last month where they actually list a lot of the celebrities that are actually invested heavily in the marijuana industry. And it's not just the medicinal side, but also the recreational side. Everyone knows Tommy Chung from Cheech and Chong. He's a big investor. Joe Montana, Whoopi Goldberg, Joe Montana. Whoopi Goldberg actually has her line on a marijuana product that she lent her name to. Gwyneth Paltrow, one of my favorite directors, producer from Law and Order. Woohoo! All the whole series. Dick Wolf, he's a huge investor. Snoop Dogg, he actually has a brand. That. Well, of course. But did you expect him to start making money off it just because he's a user? We got to make sure that you recognize just because you use it, you can also make money out of it. He has a list of flowers and edibles called Leaf by Snoop, and he's partnered with a company out in Colorado. But he's also partnered with one of my favorite actors from overseas, Patrick Stewart. Those of you that love Star Trek, Family Guy, Patrick Stewart. He is part of a huge company, and again, make note of this, write these things down, a company called Oxford Cannabinoid Tech that's in England, and he sits on the board of directors. And they are a multi-million-dollar company. Him and Patrick.
Wow.
Snoop bought into this company.
Wow.
He bought into this company. But what they do is they do a lot of research on pain management, cancer medications, neurological disorders such as Parkinson's disease and MS.
They're out here doing good work.
They are. All things based upon marijuana usage. The director of The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola, he's got millions of dollars invested off of marijuana. And the same with Mike Tyson. He's got a ranch not too far from LA where they're making a lot of money off of his ranch. Again, they're also doing marijuana testing and research based on both sides, the medicinal side as well as the recreational side. So again, a lot of people are putting money into it. And if you're not impressed by those lists of celebrities, maybe you may be impressed with some of these other companies that think that there's money into this whole new marijuana thing.
Like Coca-Cola, I know that.
Coca-Cola, a lot of alcohol companies, Heineken. Y'all drink Heineken. Heineken got money in the alcohol brand. They have a line called Hi-Fi Hops, and it's under the Lagunitas brand. Of course, there's no alcohol in the drink, but it's all THC.
Cosmetic companies, they're getting into it, right?
Yep. Estee Lauder, they have beauty products. They have cannabis in it. Marlboro cigarettes, they invested $1.8 billion. Billion with a B. Marlboro cigarettes. And Coors and Constellation brands. The Corona brand, they're partnered with Canopy Growth. Molson, they're the creators of the Coors brand. They're partnered with Hydropothecary Corporation. And again, they are making money. They're making money. So if you don't think there's money to be made in it, the people that you give your money to are making money off of it. So yeah, so it's certainly something that we need to start looking into. So again, if you
I think we can make brownies. What's up? Trying to do some brownies?
do brownies,
I can start small.
I can give you some.
I don't have no 1 billions
I
or
can
nothing.
give you some.
Let's just sit down, make some brownies, and start small. Let's out the trunk of our car like the rappers did in the 80s.
Now, you live in D.C., and I was surprised to learn not too long ago that while it's legal in D.C. for recreational use, there are stores that bring it to you in D.C. It's like Uber. You can Uber some marijuana.
I don't know how it works. All I know, I got a couple buddies that are entering into this space, and it's something about you can have under 2 ounces, and you can gift it, right? So I can share my marijuana with you, right? And some kind of code or some loophole or something. If you buy this hat from me for $100, right? Along with this hat can come a gift of marijuana.
Estimated cost of like $85 worth of marijuana?
I don't know how it works. I don't know. But I know there's a lot of exchanges happening. There's a product on the surface, but underneath there's a little bit of marijuana coming along with it.
There are several companies that operate that way, yes. And this is allegedly from some of the research that I've done for the purposes of this whole discussion. But yes, you can Google companies online with regard to the delivery. They actually have a couple stores that you can go in to get some of the other products, whether or not you need what they call auxiliary equipment to help you enjoy it, edibles and all that good stuff. They have that down there. But yeah, it's really going to be the way of the future because, as you mentioned earlier, the whole thing with prohibition. When prohibition came about in the 1920s, people were concerned, oh, alcohol is bad, we don't want people doing alcohol. And so the government said, you're right, alcohol is bad because people are saying it's bad, so they decided you can't have alcohol anymore. Right. However, the people that were using alcohol and that liked alcohol...
They figured it out. They figured it out. That was an industry for about 20 years underground, right?
Yeah, that's how Al Capone got rich.
A lot of them people got rich. We got a president. We got a president out of it.
Joe Kennedy said that he never went overseas to talk to Winston Churchill about making an agreement to get some alcohol from him. That's all I know. He said it wasn't him. He just happened to make a couple $1 billion. Well, actually, I think it was estimated $10 to $20 billion off of prohibition.
They made a lot of money off of prohibition.
Yes.
He was a regular joker too.
Yeah, all that Kennedy money. So, to conclude on that, we do have one of the things that I talk about, as I mentioned, as I know people that use it for recreational use and also people that use it for medical use. They have creams that you can buy that you can, of course, rub into your skin to help ailments because a lot of people use it for pain management. Also, I've had some friends that were cancer survivors that also used the CBD that they were prescribed to make sure that they used it to help alleviate pain and to help make sure that they're resting, to provide an appetite for those people, those patients that had no appetite when it was time to eat and they couldn't eat. So that was another use for it. So if you don't want to smoke it, that's fine. You ain't got to smoke it. You don't want to try I heard they were delicious edibles. You don't have to try that either. But you should be concerned about where your money is going. Yeah. Because there are a lot of companies that are taking your money and investing it in the marijuana trade.
We should have Khadijah's back. Because here's something I want to talk about, right? And so this industry is growing. It's legal, possession at a certain level, consumption at a certain level. But there are a whole bunch of other things that don't correspond. So you saying I can possess weed, you saying I can use weed in a particular way, but then when I go for a job interview, I can't get the job because I have it in my system. Or I can't drive my car, because I'll be treated like I was under the influence, right? Not alcohol, but so there's some there.
Well, I'm not gonna side with you on that one because I'm still I'm a connoisseur of a good wine and a fresh beer, And so we still watch that little fine loophole that the shop owners undertake, that you can come and sit at my bar. When you leave, all right, see you tomorrow. So I'm like, okay, but we all just sat here and had all these drinks, but it's okay for us to go. Where do you think we're going?
Yeah, it's the same kind of logic,
out
right?
Out to an Uber, out to a taxi. I mean, you don't
get you drunk and put you out, and then everybody going to get in their car.
So something to be mindful of. Now, mind you, I am not an advocate, even that driving drunk, driving tipsy, I'm not an advocate of that, because some people cannot handle their liquor, and it does impair your body. So just make sure that we put that out there too. So that whole driving while impaired, driving under the influence, you do need to be mindful of that. If you drink and stay somewhere, finish drinking and rest up until you can drive. Same thing if you smoking, enjoy your smoke, chill, relax until your high has come down and you're able to get to where you're going.
If you can. I got a buddy who got busted last week. He might be watching, so I'm not going to say his name. But he got busted last week for driving under the influence, alcohol. Now, he said he was fine, but it's only like 2 drinks or whatever, 2 shots and you're done, or a beer and a half, whatever. It's a small
that'll
number.
Put you within the legal limit, allegedly.
So, now, and I was at a community meeting last night, so 2 different perspectives. So, he got arrested because he didn't blow. But he get to go to court and he's fine. Like, he won't have any criminal issues, right? But he loses his driver's license because he didn't blow. So he's not guilty of driving drunk, but he doesn't get to keep his license for a year, right? And then last night at a community meeting, the police chief of D.C. was talking about they're pulling people over who are high, but they have no way to hold them responsible for their high, because something about you can have marijuana in your system for 30 days. So if you're high, they pull you over and you're high, you can get off, right, if you fail the sobriety test, because the blood, like, you have weed in your blood for 30 days. So if you smoke on the first and then smoke the following 30 days, like, it doesn't matter where you smoked in between. If you get pulled over, it's like you're under I don't understand. Like, so all these I think they're not practical in terms of how people are living. That's all I'm trying to get at. Like,
and I think there's still some refinement that needs to be done, because I have family members live in California because I'm from California. And so in California, they have the right to actually look at your social media when they're considering you for employment. And so I've had to tell numerous folks, take down your pictures of your flower buds, take down your pictures of you turning up and all that good stuff, because they can use that against you.
Yep.
But again, it's legal for you to do those things. However, as an employer, I don't want to hire you because you're telling me that you're doing that. That's something
crazy.
It's that ask but don't
crazy.
Tell thing that I don't really need to know. So
it's crazy.
We need to be mindful.
Be careful,
we need to be mindful as a people. Look, as a people, I don't care what color you are, but you need to be mindful as a people. One, that you have a stream of income, that you have a place to work, and that you're enjoying and relaxing in ways that will still allow you to go to work and care for your family.
It's consequent. It's legal, but it ain't, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, be careful out here. I don't smoke. I smoke cigars, but I don't on occasions. And I've been alcohol-free for a long time.
Awesome.
But I'm not against drinking.
Yeah, I've been
I feel clean now. I've been like purging, working out and fasting, trying to get sexy for the spring. I'm gonna bring my guns out in April.
Okay. So before we wrap up, I have another chart that I want to show you all, because we also want to make sure that before we leave, not only did we talk about some of the changes that are coming around with regards to laws being in favor of people that have been convicted because of misdemeanors and or felonies on their records, because a lot of states are doing that as well. I believe on our notes, and these are from Forbes.com, there are a lot of states that are considering pardons for imprisoned marijuana users or those that were in possession of it. Aside from the state of Washington, Seattle, San Francisco, Denver, and other prosecutors in New York City, because marijuana is still illegal there, they're all looking at clearing old convictions. And so that's something that, that's good news, that we're at least trying to clear through some of the overcrowding in the prisons based off these petty crimes for people that get arrested for things that we think they're better things that you can arrest and hold people for because of our overcrowding systems. But other than that, the other graphic that I want to show is something personal to me, because I think that whatever I can monetize, we gonna monetize it. But the second graphic that I'm gonna show you all is the actual stocks that I follow. And this is before I met with Khadijah, but I'm gonna talk to Khadijah too, because I want to see what she's talking about and what she got going. As of earlier, these are some investments that I have made. So, like, if you don't want to,
Acreage Holdings at the bottom. $21 a share. Is that what that means?
The bid price, and then they have the asking price for it. But even if you don't want to use marijuana, you don't want to be associated with it, I recommend that you don't miss out on your money.
$5,
don't miss out on your money.
$6. I can afford that.
You drinking Coca-Cola products, they putting their money in their marijuana business. You smoking cigarettes, Marlboro Company is putting in their business. You drinking Coronas, they putting your money into the marijuana industry.
So that's affordable. So you're saying $5.70.
Afria Holdings, this is actually a company.
So 100 shares.
This is one of the companies that Francis Ford Coppola is connected to, Afria Holdings. They opened today at $10.48. Kronos Group is another group that's on the rise at 22 and 83, and this is on our stock market in the U.S. Stock Exchange. So these are stocks that you can pick up here. Hexo Group, Curleaf, and again Acreage Holdings at the bottom.
I need to look into this.
A lot of good information about stocks that you can buy and pick up. The other graphic that I'm going to show you is
public?
My second line. Yeah, these stocks, again, because they trade, there are states where they're legal. And a lot of these companies are also connected to the Canadian stock market, where it's legal in Canada, where it's legal in other countries around the world. And so it all comes in one way and goes out the other way. So if you don't have $20 a share, $10 a share, you can look at some of the penny stocks. These are penny stocks that I follow. True Leaf, GB Sciences, their newest, I think he's the head of marketing. He came from Nike. I think it was Nike. Don't quote me on that, but I'm gonna pull that up.
Who's in charge of True Leaf?
True Leaf, I think they're also based in Oregon, but GB Sciences is also based in Oregon. And these are, again, penny stock that you can get on. Now's the time. It's kind of like when Facebook came about. People, I'm not getting into that. When Under Armour came about, I'm not getting into that. My suggestion is that you get into something.
If you can get into something.
You get into something.
Except for trouble and, I ain't going to say that.
Look, so definitely take a look, do some reading. The information is out there for you all to remain knowledgeable about, to check into, to make sure that you're picking up on money that you shouldn't be missing. And you don't have to be savvy to know anything about stocks. You can go to some of the many online companies, TD Ameritrade. There are some other great companies where you can trade online and you can do it on pennies on the dollar, and you don't even have to know how to do it. So, but again, it's some place for you to start, time for us to start looking at better ways to sustain ourselves economically, because again, we're still on the heels of government shutdown, but you should have another source of income. And I think this is a great ground level for us to get into, because there's so many people that are doing it, and you certainly don't want to be last on this way to make money. Like I said, it is the way of the future. You may not like it, but again, a lot of people didn't like alcohol. And I think that if we're looking at the lesser of two evils, I'd much rather have people sitting at home, smoking weed, eating some edibles, talk about what you doing? You want to go somewhere? Nah, I want to stay home and smoke. As opposed to people that are drinking. People that are drinking, let's go out and do this. Let's go out and do this. People that use marijuana and CBD, they're not trying to go nowhere and do that.
I've never seen anyone high want to fight.
Yeah, it's kind of contrary to the nature of the drug. So
liquor gets you hype.
Mm-hmm. Liquor is a upper, THC is a downer, and most people that use downers want to sit down somewhere. Yeah. So, like I said, if you're looking at the lesser two evils, I would definitely recommend that one. Again, keeping in line with making sure you're following the laws of the land. Eventually, mark my words, it's 2019. By 2021, in the next 2 years, marijuana will be legal in the United States on the federal level. again, this is going to be a new change. So again, these are my recommendations, some good stock tips. Hopefully you'll follow up with our guest today, Khadijah Triblett. You can follow her. Again, all of her information can be found on our social media lines. We've tagged her there and tagged some of her her background.
Did you put their socials out there?
We did. So we certainly want you to continue this conversation because, as I mentioned before, we want to make sure that our people are economically sustained. We also want to make sure that we're safe. We also want to make sure that we're making venues out there for people that are coming out of the criminal justice system because they got caught up in some of these lesser drug offenses, i.e. marijuana users and or sellers. So we're trying to be mindful of our community and how we can make things better, and have some fun while we're doing it. Have a little joke or two. So
I'm on board.
All right. So again, we want to say thank you so much for tuning in to this week's edition of Shaynel's 3 Cents with my awesome host, Mr. VJ, getting sexy for the spring, Johnson.
You know I got a marathon. I'm running in the Rock and Roll Marathon March 9th.
March 9th?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing a half.
Video.
I'm doing a half. I'm not ready for the full yet, but I'm doing a half.
Like I said, I might drive by and wave. So.
Yeah. Stop and pick me up if I fall out.
Again, thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you like everything that we said today, but if not, at least you heard it. We'll see you back next week. Look, I gotta check my stocks.
I know.